Parental intake and output. So we have this order. The patient has a 1 liter of dextrose 5 water. So that's the IV bag. It's 1 liter IV bag, which is 1,000 milliliters. And they're infusing it at a rate of 80 milliliters per hour. The patient's received 1 gram in 200 milliliters. So this means that I have a dosage strength here, right? This sodium chloride, and it was done at 0900. The patient also got 200 milligrams IV piggyback in 500 milliliters. So here's the dosage strength for this. And it said that it was done BID, which we know is twice daily. And it was done during the window of 0730 to 1930. All right, so we got all this information going on. So let's go to the underlying question. The underlying question said that we're calculating the input and output during the shift of 1500 to 2300, which is 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So whatever we're going to calculate in here, we got to make sure it falls in this window, okay? Because outside that window, it's already been calculated by another nurse, someone else on the other shift. So let's go back to the first part. We got a flow rate of 80 milliliters per hour. So this here, the way it states, it's continuous. So that means we know from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. they're still doing a flow rate, and that is 8 hours. So I'm going to take that 80 milliliters per hour. And before I do this, let's just back up 1 second. Before I do this, I need to make sure that nothing happened because I'm going to reread it, right? So let's reread it. It said that this was the flow rate of this 1 liter bag. During the time, they're receiving 1 gram in 200 milliliters, but it happened at 0900. 0900 is 9 a.m. It did not fall in that window. So this here has already been calculated. It's already been written up. So we don't need it for this case here. So let's go to the next part. The next part said that, let me erase this blue here. It's kind of dark. The next part said that they got an IV piggyback. IV piggyback means that they either got antibiotics added to their IV through the port, or pain medicine, or if they had allergic reaction, gave them something. So sometimes that's an IV piggyback. So I'm not for sure on all the science of what all the stuff that be given through that, but I do know most of the time it's pain medicine or antibiotics. All right, so we said it's twice a day, right? And it's during the windows 0730 to 1930. So that means 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. All right. So only part of this fell through the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So that means we're going to calculate 1 of the piggybacks. So we're only going to calculate 50 milliliters of 1 of the piggybacks. We don't need to say anything about the 20 milligrams because that's the strength of the drug that's in that 50 milliliters. What we are trying to do is calculate their intake, right? So this is going to be the intake, the volume of it. And it's only once during the window of 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So now let's go back and take the 80 milliliters, the IV infusion, and let's calculate for those 8 hours how many milliliters they received. Sometimes things happen in between, and the patient could have pulled the IV out, something went wrong with it, and they had to stop it, and you lose some time. So then on your shift, it wouldn't be a full 8 hours. So you got to watch for that. And sometimes the order comes in that you need to increase the IV infusion. Sometimes you need to decrease it sometime in the middle of that shift. So that will also change all those factors as well. So just depending on what's going on. That's why it's good to reread it and check it. So now let's go to the next step. 8 times 80 is 640. Reduce the H, leaves me milliliters. So now I can calculate this together and be able to tell you the total intake for this patient. And it'd be 690 milliliters for the total intake for this patient, the parental intake. And give me just a second. I may have one where it breaks down that window. Let's look at this one. This one's kind of my favorite. Let's do this one. This one may have a little bit more information that I was talking about. So in the morning, there was a handoff report of the daily shift. The nurse learns that the patient's IV is at 80 milliliters per hour. So that's the flow rate, with 600 milliliters remaining in the bag. Okay. So something happened to it somewhere. It's around 6:30 and it stopped. Okay. And then it said it restarted at 0800. And then it said that there was a piggyback at 50 milliliters at 10 a.m. And then it says both IV infusions continuously. So that means that this here is continuously. However, there was a gap between 6:30 and 0800. There's something that didn't happen that hour and a half. The next part says at noon, the doctor increased the flow rate. And then the patient pulls the IV out around 1 p.m. and the nurse restarts it at 1400. Okay, so we got a lot going on, guys. So let's look at our shift. Our shift said our patient's parental intake is going to be from 0700 to 1500. So that means 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. that we need to document all outside that window. Someone else has already documented. So let's go back. So 6:30 to 0800, that hour and a half's gone. We don't need anything before 8 then, right? We don't need anything before 6:30. So we got 0800 to what? So 0800 goes down to, it said noon here, right? They had the flow rate of 80 milliliters per hour. Now let's go back to the IV piggyback right here, guys. I'm going to put it over here to the side. And it states that 50 milliliters of this drug of 50, okay, so let me say this right. 50 milliliters of dextrose 5 water with 500 milligrams of this, I'm not going to pronounce it. Anyways, was administered at 10 a.m. So at 10 a.m., they got 50 milliliters. Piggyback, IV piggyback. It fell within that window, so I'm going to count it. And then we're going to go back down. It said at noon, they increased the rate. So at noon, it made changes. So it increased to 100 milliliters per hour. And read on. It said the patient pulls the IV out at 1300. And then the nurse restarted it at 1400. And our shift ended at 1500. All right, so now let's just see what's going on. So from 8 to 12 is 4 hours. So our H is reduced, leaves me at 4 times 8, which is 320 milliliters. And then from 12 to 1, that's 1 hour. So it's just 100 milliliters times 1 hour. Times, and that was just 1 hour there. So that, you know, that worked out. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit different, maybe more hours than that. Okay, so let's figure out what is the total here. So I have, I'm going to come over here. I have 320 milliliters. I have 100 milliliters. I have 100 milliliters, and I have 50. Let's add this up. So zeros plus zeros, 2 plus 5, 3 plus 1 plus 1. So the total intake, parental intake for this patient is 570 milliliters.